chapter, which is solving algebraic, basically solving the algebraic model. So solving any formulas, any problems using algebra. All right? And in order for me to be able to solve using algebra, I need to have equations. Right? I need to have a formula, I need to have some variables and some known value, and I need to be able to plug in and solve. Okay, that's what algebra means, right? You have some unknowns, you have some given data, right? And then you isolate for one of the variables to solve for it. Okay? So you need to have formulas. Our first lesson of this unit is basically when you have a problem. Sometimes the problems are pretty straightforward, and they give you the formula and they tell you solve for this, and then they give you a number, and then you plug it in and you solve. Pretty easy, right? But sometimes it's a little bit more, require more work, right? So if let's say they give you some dimensions of a room, and they tell you you want to paint that room, right? How many gallons of whatever paint do you need, and how much is going to cost? So in this case, you're going to have more planning to do, right? More steps, right, to take in order for you to be able to solve the problem. Does that make sense, right? If you're building something, if you are planning a trip, right, they all have multiple steps. It's not only one step. So what's a formula? How would you define a formula for me? Any formula, how would you define it? It's a mathematical what? Equation, right? Why do we call it an equation? Because it has an equal sign, right? So when you have two sides of the equation, when you have two sides, and then you have an equal sign, we call that an equation. If there's no equal sign, do you know what it's called? What is it called in math? No. Expression, right? When you don't have the equal sign, it's called an expression. When you have the equal sign, it's called an equation. Okay? So it's a mathematical equation that relates two or more variables, right? Letters. So you always will have at least two variables, right? You'll have the y and the x, right? The m and the t, the e and the c, whatever it is, right? So the two variables at least. So for example, p equals 25t minus 800 might give the profit from ticket sale, where p is the profit and t is the number of tickets sold. So you see here we have two variables, p and t, right? In the second equation, which is the Einstein theory of relativity, which is E equals mc squared, how many variables do you see here? You see three. But one of them is mostly constant, or it's known, not constant, right? The speed of light is known. If you know what is it passing through? Is it passing through air, through vacuum, through what is it passing through? That's a constant, okay? That's given, usually, C, okay? Mass and energy, they are variables, okay? But as you can see here, E, M, and C, they're all variable to you. Now, so these are examples of some formulas or some equations. When you're solving multi-step problems, you need to plan and organize your solution. So I'm not going to even read this. If you have a problem, what do you want to do? So what would be your first step to solve? So your final step is solving, right? It's finding the answer that you're looking for. But what do you want to do? Okay, so define what is given to you and what is required, right? So the givens and the required. All right, so now I know what they gave me. I know what I'm looking for, then what do you want to do?
Find the proper formula for the, and then I have to solve.
So you're going to have to use the proper formula, right? The proper formula might be given to you in the equation, or you might have to kind of figure out, okay, what kind of formula I'm using, right? So if let's say they tell you the volume of a can is this, whatever, right? So you know that you have to go back to your geometry unit, right? To your geometry formula and find the volume of a can, which is a cylindrical shape, right? And then start with that. You're going to have to find your own formula, right? Sometimes they actually give you the formula, all right? So for example, if a question has to do with the price and the number of tickets sold, they might give you that formula, okay? So write down that formula, then solve. Plug in what you have and solve for what you are missing, okay? So you're going to have to find your own way, and sometimes you might have to use more than one formula, okay? So we're going to look at some examples today. Sometimes it's just an easy one formula, one step thing. So the formula S equals to 0.6t plus 331.5 gives the approximate speed of sound in air, where S is meters per second and the temperature is T degrees Celsius. Determine the speed of sound at minus 40 degrees. So what did they give me? What am I looking for? And what formula do I need to use? Right? So these are the questions. So what's given to me? The formula and T. Yeah. So T, the temperature, is given to me, right? Remember that whenever they give you a question like this, they define what each letter represents. They have to tell you that S is the sound in air, right? And they give you the unit for it. And they tell you T is the temperature in degrees Celsius. So they define it to you. Okay? So start with a formula. So I know that my given is negative 40 degrees, and that's T. Right? And I know that I'm looking for S. Are you guys okay with that? Right? T is given, I'm looking for S. So my formula is given to me, so I'm going to write that down. Then I'm going to substitute the given information. In this case, because T is given to me, it's as easy as just plugging in T in the formula and then plug it into the calculator. I don't have to do any isolation. So S is equal to 0.6 times negative 40 plus 331.5. And then that's a matter of plugging it into the calculator and telling me how much, what's the speed of sound. Is it 300? And then make sure you include your units, so that's meter per second. And I know that from the definition that they give. Always, because that's a word problem, you're going to have to include a therefore statement. So therefore, the speed of sound in air at minus 40 degrees Celsius is 307.5 meters per second. So that's a straightforward solving, right? Are we okay with that? All right. by 40 centimeter by 20 centimeter. How many buckets of soil are needed to fill the plant? What do I have here? I have a cylinder. Yeah. What else do I have? A rectangular prism. Yeah. So I have two different shapes here, right? And then what's happening in that scenario? What's happening? I need to find the volume of which one? Of both? Of one of them? Of both. And then once I find the volume, what do I do with that? Yeah. So I find the volume. What else do I do? Now I found the volume. How is the volume going to help me?
You have to divide it, the rectangular prism's volume by cylinder volume.
And why is that? You need to know how many buckets, right? So I have my total volume, which is the rectangular prism, right? And I'm gonna take the bucket and I'm gonna start filling, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I need to know how many buckets I'm going to use, right? And that has to do with what's the ratio between the volume of the bigger shape, which is my rectangular prism, versus the volume of my bucket that I'm using to fill that rectangular prism, right? So I'm finding the ratio between the two. Does that make sense to you guys? In real life, do you do that? Yes, right? If you want to know how many bags of things you need to buy, right? Let's say you're going to plant your own garden and you have this much space, right? That you need to fill out. You don't want to go and buy 200 bags while you need 20 bags, right? At the same time, you don't want to go and make 5 trips to the store, right? So you want to do your calculation beforehand. Same idea. Okay? So, now when I look at my measurements, what do you see here? They're not the same. What's wrong?
Well, there's 1 meter and then the other 2 centimeters.
Okay, so what would you want to do?
Convert to meter to centimeter.
Convert the meter to centimeter, right? Can I convert the centimeter to meter?
So it'll be a decimal.
Yes, it will be a decimal, but then you're going to have to do multiple conversions, right? Which one do you want to do? Multiple conversion or one conversion? Probably one conversion. It's easier, right? So I will change the 1.2 meter into centimeter. That's an easier one step, right? So to convert this, what do you do? Multiplied by 100. Okay, so 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter, right? If I have 1.2 meter, so that's going to be 120 centimeters. Bless you. So I know that I have to use the volume in this case, right? Because we're talking about how much it fits. So the volume of the planter, which is a rectangular prism, is length times width times height. And the volume for the bucket, which is the cylinder, is 2 pi r squared, no, pi r squared h. Can you guys check the formula for me? It's pi r squared h, right? Okay? So we're going to sub in the values. So the volume is length times width times height. So that's 120 by 40 by 20. And that is going to give me 96,000 centimeter cube. And for that, I have the radius to be 18 and the height to be 18. And that is going to be, can you guys double check the numbers for me? Because I don't have a calculator. planter is 96,000. Each bucket is fitting 19,321. How many buckets do I need? I have to find the ratio, right? So to find the number of buckets, you have to divide the volume of the planter by the volume of the bucket. Guys, sometimes these questions, there is no formula, right? It's common sense, right? It's your common sense formulas that you're gonna come up with. So that's going to be 96,000 divided by 18,321.77, and that's going to give me about 5.2 buckets. And then you're gonna write the final statement. So therefore, about 5 buckets will be needed. If you're buying this, you probably want to buy 6 buckets, right? If you're buying the buckets, but because you already have the soil there or whatever, the fertilizer, I don't know what we're using here, and just how many buckets do you need. So it's about 5 buckets. So what I want you to do right now, I want you to get in groups of 2 or 3, and I want you to try to solve the next problem. All right? I don't want you to worry about this. If you want to fill it out, you can fill it out, but I will not worry about this. Make sure you read the question, see what they're asking you for, and try to solve. Okay?